Nearly 30 years after a flashpoint in the U.S.-Cuba relations, when two unarmed brothers to the rescue planes were shot down over international waters, the Department of Justice is finally bringing charges.
Raul Castro and 5 co-defendants participated in a conspiracy that ended with Cuban military aircraft firing missiles at those civilian planes and killing 4 Americans. Those are the allegations returned by a federal grand jury. My message today is clear. The United States and President Trump does not and will not forget its citizens.
Castro faces charges of conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals, destruction of aircraft, and murder. President Trump praised the move earlier today.
We have Cuba on our mind. Very important. Been a lot of problems for a lot of years, and this was I think it was a very big moment for people that, not only Cuban Americans, but people that came from Cuba, that want to go back to Cuba, people that want to see their family in Cuba. I think this is a very big day, very important day.
Joining us now, Florida Congressman who fled Cuba with his family when he was just 6 years old, Carlos Gimenez. Congressman, it's very good to have you with us tonight. Obviously, a deeply personal issue for you, everything going on with Cuba. We'd just love to get your reaction to the indictment of Raul Castro and what you think it means for what we're doing with Cuba going forward.
Well, it's 30 years in the making. It actually should have been indicted about 30 years ago. I remember the Clinton administration having some really tough words about what they were going to do and did nothing. Now we have a president that will actually do things. It's a man of action, not words. And we're really, I'm really appreciative of what the president has done, what the Department of Justice has done in issuing these indictments. Raul Castro, without a doubt, is guilty of murder. There are 4 innocent Americans that were shot down by MiGs back in 1996. And what were these Americans doing? They were looking for people that were fleeing the island. They were on a mission of mercy, and Raul Castro just blew them right out of the sky.
What about next steps in terms of Cuba enforcing change there, Congressman? Because it definitely seems as if the steps the U.S. and the sequencing of approaches that the U.S. is taking, it harkens back to what we saw in Venezuela.
Well, look, obviously the president now has different options that he can exercise. There is a legal structure now that he can use to take whatever action that he desires. I'm not sure that he wants to do that. I believe that President Trump is exerting the maximum amount of pressure on the regime. He's seeing the regime, and we're seeing the regime kind of collapsing under its own weight. They're totally incompetent. They have no food, they have no water, they have no fuel, they don't have any electricity, and every night the Cuban people go out and demonstrate against the regime. It's still a highly oppressive regime. They're beating people up as we speak, throwing them in jail, etc. But eventually, I think that's going to run out too. And so I think that right now the right strategy is continue the pressure, and hopefully the change will happen organically from inside. But the president does have options that he can exercise at a time and place of his choosing. So, remember also that Cuba poses a national security threat to the United States. We just learned recently that they have over 300 drones. These drones could probably have ranges that can reach into the southeastern United States. And so they have always been a national security threat. They pose one right now, and if they're allowed to exist, they will pose one in the future. This president, I don't believe, will allow a country that's only 90 miles from our shore to pose a national security threat to its citizens.
Congressman, there are many Americans, and I would say on both sides of the aisle, who get nervous about moves that we're making overseas. Maybe Venezuela worked out, but Iran is stalled right now. We're talking about Cuba. What do you say to Americans who get nervous about extending so far overseas when they can point at home to issues that they say, look, just fix these first because these affect us most directly, whether it's the economy, gas, oil, et cetera? What's your message?
Well, my message to them is this: as far as Iran is concerned, Iran's thousands of miles away, but listen, we're trying to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, and that nuclear weapon can one day come and touch us here in the United States. Cuba's only 90 miles away. It's not like we're looking at something that's thousands of miles away. I mean, it's closer from Key West to Havana. It's closer than Miami to Naples. All right, and so that's the distances we're talking about. So it's right there, and it's been a threat to the United States. It is the cancer of the Western Hemisphere, and he's right in the president is right in focusing on our hemisphere and making sure that our hemisphere is free of these malign influences and malign dictatorships that we have in Venezuela and Cuba, who are friends to who? Our adversaries: China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. I mean, that's 90 miles from our shore, and so Cuba's a little bit different. Okay, Cuba's right there, and it's right over the horizon is a communist island that is not a friend of the United States and poses a threat to the United States today.
Congressman, great to see you, sir.